Imagine standing outside Buckingham Palace, surrounded by tourists, when suddenly someone does the unthinkable. A man steps directly into the path of the marching royal guards. At first, people laugh, thinking he's just being silly, but within seconds, those laughs turn into gasps. Because when it comes to the royal guard, there are no jokes, no hesitation, and no mercy for anyone who stands in their way. What happened next left the entire crowd stunned, and it's something this man will never forget. Before we dive into the full story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss these unbelievable moments. And let us know in the comments, which country are you watching from? It was a bright afternoon in London, the kind of day when the forecourt of Buckingham Palace was packed with tourists from all over the world. Families clustered near the black and gold gates, children balanced on their parents' shoulders, and the clicking of cameras filled the air. Everyone was waiting for one of the most famous sights in the United Kingdom, the royal guards on duty. The guards are instantly recognizable, towering figures in scarlet tunics, polished buttons gleaming in the sunlight, and their iconic bearskin hats rising high above their heads. Their rifles, slung precisely at their sides, glinted with a quiet reminder that these are not actors or street performers. They are real soldiers, carrying real weapons, guarding one of the most important residences in the world. The crowd's chatter quieted as a small detachment of guards began their march across the forecourt. Every boot struck the ground in perfect rhythm, echoing against the stone like a drumbeat. Their arms swung in identical arcs, their heads fixed forward, eyes locked on the path ahead. Nothing distracted them, not the waving hands of tourists, not the camera flashes, not even the OC. Occasional shout from the crowd. And then, from the right-hand side, a man decided to test the limits. At first, he looked like any other tourist. A casual jacket, sunglasses perched on his face, and a wide grin that suggested he thought he was about to get a cheap laugh. He stepped out from the crowd, edging closer to the clear pathway reserved for the guards. The space was marked and well known. This was the guards' line of march, and no one was supposed to cross it. Yet here he was, drifting further forward, as his friends held up their phones, already recording. The people nearby gasped, some even whispering warnings, "Don't do it!" They knew what the man apparently didn't. The royal guard does not stop, swerve, or hesitate. Their march is absolute, and if someone is foolish enough to get in the way, the consequences are swift and unforgettable. Still grinning, the man stepped fully into their path, arms stretched slightly, as though he was about to block them like some kind of joke. His friends snickered in the background, confident they were about to capture a funny clip to post online. But the mood of the crowd shifted. The energy in the air tightened. Parents pulled their children closer. Everyone's eyes locked on the man and the approaching line of guards. The lead guard did not slow. His boots struck harder against the stone, his jaw set like iron. The rifles glinted. The line remained steady. The guard's reputation is one of unbreakable discipline, but it's also one of force. And in a matter of seconds, this tourist was about to discover just how serious that discipline truly is. The man planted his feet in the middle of the pathway, smirking as if he had pulled off the ultimate prank. His friends laughed nervously from the sidelines, their phones recording every second. To them it was just harmless fun, a quick video for social media. But to the royal guard, this was not entertainment. This was interference. The rhythmic pounding of boots grew louder. Each step landed like a warning drumbeat. Move. Now. But the man didn't. He even raised his hands in a mock stop gesture, as though daring the guards to break formation. And then it happened. The lead guard, tall and commanding in his scarlet uniform and black bearskin hat, came within feet of the tourist. His expression didn't waver, but his discipline snapped into action. With a sudden stomp, he shifted his boot hard against the stone, the sound cracking like a gunshot through the air. "Make way for the King's Guard!" he bellowed, his voice cutting across the courtyard with the force of a thunderclap. The crowd gasped. Some flinched at the sheer volume, while others instinctively took a step back. The man's grin faltered instantly. His sunglasses slipped down his nose as his confidence shattered. But the guard wasn't finished. Without breaking formation, the line of soldiers surged forward. Their rifles glinted in the afternoon sun, their boots striking harder and faster. The lead guard's shoulder brushed the tourist with deliberate force, sending him stumbling to the side. The man flailed awkwardly, nearly tripping over his own feet as the crowd erupted into shocked whispers and murmurs of awe. The guards didn't stop. They didn't look back. Their march continued as though nothing had happened, as though brushing aside an obstacle was no different than stepping over a pebble. Their discipline was absolute. Meanwhile, the tourists' friends stopped laughing. Their phones captured N. What a light-hearted prank, but a moment of public humiliation. The man tried to play it off with a shrug, forcing a laugh, but the redness on his face betrayed the truth. He had been humbled, instantly and undeniably. For the onlookers, the reaction was electric. Parents pointed at the guards, whispering to their children about respect and discipline. Older visitors shook their heads, muttering about how foolish it was to test soldiers whose duty was to protect the monarchy. And teenagers, phones in hand, whispered excitedly, "That's going viral." The guards' reaction was swift, sharp, and final. It wasn't violence. It wasn't unnecessary aggression. It was centuries of tradition in action. A reminder that the Royal Guard's authority is not for show. They are not actors in costume. They are not there for cheap laughs. They are soldiers, and their orders are clear. Nothing interrupts the King's Guard. The man, now pressed back into the crowd, tried to melt into anonymity, but it was too late. Hundreds of eyes had seen his arrogance meet the unbreakable wall of British discipline. And thanks to the dozens of cameras raised high, the entire world would soon see it too. The air outside Buckingham Palace shifted instantly after the confrontation. The sharp command of the guard still echoed in people's ears, and the shock hadn't worn off. For a few moments the entire courtyard seemed frozen, dozens of tourists staring at the pathway, processing what they had just witnessed. Then, like a spark catching fire, the murmurs began. "Did you hear that?" one woman exclaimed, clutching her handbag closer. "I've never seen them react like that before," said another. And behind them, a group of teenagers replayed the moment on their phones, laughing nervously as they realized they'd caught the perfect angle. The man who had blocked the guard now stood off to the side, red-faced and quiet, suddenly invisible compared to the towering soldiers who had just passed. His friends avoided eye contact with the crowd, embarrassed that their joke had turned into a public spectacle. But it didn't matter. The cameras had captured everything. Within minutes, the video clips began traveling from phone to phone. Some uploaded directly to Instagram stories, others to TikTok with captions like, "Never mess with the Royal Guard," or "Instant regret in London." By the time the tourists dispersed for the afternoon, at least a dozen versions of the clip were already circulating online. That night, the internet did what it always does. It exploded. On YouTube, titles began to appear. "Tourist blocks the King's Guard, watch what happens next." Views climbed rapidly, the thumbnails showing the exact moment the guard's boot slammed against the stone, or the second the man stumbled out of the way. On TikTok, edits appeared with dramatic sound effects, the stomp synchronized with bass drops, the guard's shout replayed again and again, looped for maximum impact. One version gained 500,000 views in less than 2 hours, another hit 1 million by morning. On Twitter, or X as many now called it, debates raged. Some defended the guard's reaction, pointing out that they are active duty soldiers, not performers for tourist entertainment. Others argued the guards were too harsh, claiming the tourist was just having fun. But even in those arguments, the same clip kept playing, fueling the discussion. By the end of the week, the incident had gone global. News outlets picked it up. Royal Guard forces tourist aside in Buckingham Palace standoff. Comment sections flooded with opinions, from admiration of the guard's discipline to sharp criticism of tourist disrespect. And then came the compy. Arrisons. Clips of other confrontations resurfaced. A tourist shoved aside after stepping too close. Another startled by a sudden stomp. Even a viral moment where a guard raised his rifle in warning when someone grabbed at his arm. This new clip joined the archive. Another reminder to the world. Crossing the line with the Royal Guard never ends well. But perhaps the most powerful reaction wasn't online. It was among the crowd that had witnessed it live. Parents explained to their children why the guards had acted that way. "They're not actors," one father said, crouching down to his son. "They're soldiers. You respect them." The teenagers who had once laughed nervously now replayed the clip with pride, realizing they had witnessed something that millions would later see. For them, it wasn't just a funny tourist mishap. It was a story they'd tell for years. And the man at the center of it all? His moment of arrogance became a permanent reminder of what happens when ego collides with tradition. While his friends may have tried to delete some of the footage, the internet never forgets. His face, twisted in shock as the guard's shoulder brushed him aside, was frozen forever in thumbnails, memes, and headlines. In less than 24 hours, his stunt had turned into a lesson broadcast across the world. The Royal Guards are not props, they are protectors, and their discipline, honed over centuries, will never break for the sake of a joke. To truly understand why the moment outside Buckingham Palace unfolded the way it did, you need to step inside the world of the Royal Guards. These men and women are far more than ceremonial figures in bright red tunics and towering bearskin hats. Behind the polished buttons, the rhythmic march, and the silent stoicism lies a level of training and tradition that few tourists truly comprehend. Most visitors see the guards as living statues, part of the experience of London. They pose for pictures, they stand motionless in the rain, they march with precision. But what many don't realise is that every single guard is a fully trained soldier of the British Army. The men stationed outside Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle or the Tower of London are not actors. They've served, some in combat zones abroad. The ceremonial role is part of their military duty, not a tourist attraction. The King's Guard traces its roots back hundreds of years, to an era when the monarch's personal safety was at constant risk. Back then, their role was more than symbolic. They were the last line of defence between assassins and the sovereign. Over time, warfare evolved, but the Guard's purpose remained: protect the monarch, maintain discipline, and uphold the dignity of the crown. That history still weighs heavily today. Every stomp, every rotation of the rifle, every shouted warning isn't improvised. It's the product of carefully maintained rules passed down through generations. Crossing the guard's path isn't just considered disrespectful, it's considered a breach of security. So how does a soldier learn to remain completely still for hours while tourists make faces, shout, or even wave objects in front of them? The answer lies in training designed to push both body and mind to their limits. Royal Guards are conditioned to maintain composure in the face of distraction. Whether it's blinding sunlight, pouring rain, or the chaos of thousands of visitors snapping photos, they must hold their ground. At first, recruits often struggle. The human instinct to blink, scratch, or react is strong. But through relentless drills, discipline is drilled into them until stoicism becomes second nature. And yet, when someone crosses the invisible line, when they step into the guard's path, or touch them, that training shifts instantly. The stillness breaks, replaced by precise, forceful action. It's not about anger, it's about protocol. Every guard operates under strict rules. If a tourist crosses into restricted space, the guard must act. First, they issue a warning, a stomp, a shout, or the unmistakable command, "Stand clear of the King's Guard." If ignored, they are authorized to escalate further, even to the point of physical force. And yes, their rifles are real. The bayonets glinting under the London sun are not decorative. The guards carry loaded weapons, though they hope never to use them. Still, if a serious threat emerged, a weapon drawn, an attack attempted, they wouldn't hesitate to respond. What does crossing the line actually mean? It's not always obvious to tourists. Sometimes it's as simple as standing in the guard's path during a march. Other times it's touching their uniform or mocking them too closely. The exact boundaries shift depending on location, but the principle remains the same. The guard's space is sacred. To anyone watching the viral clip, the man blocking the guard may have seemed like a harmless nuisance, but in the guard's eyes, he was an obstacle in a royal security corridor. And that's unacceptable. This wasn't the first time someone had learned that lesson. Dozens of clips online show similar encounters. A woman shoved aside when she tried to grab a guard's arm for a selfie. A group of tourists scattering in shock as a guard marched straight through them without flinching. Children startled into silence when a guard suddenly stomped and roared at adults who pushed too close. Each incident carries the same theme: discipline over emotion, authority over chaos. For the guards, it's never personal. It's not about humiliating the tourist or making a scene. It's about protecting centuries of tradition. And ensuring that Buckingham Palace, symbol of the monarchy, is never disrespected. For the guards, it's never personal. It's not about humiliating the tourist or making a scene. It's about protecting centuries of tradition and ensuring that Buckingham Palace, symbol of the monarchy, is never disrespected. And that's why the guard in our story reacted the way he did. He wasn't angry. He wasn't flustered. He was doing exactly what he had been trained to do. Enforce the boundary between the public and the monarchy with unshakable discipline. When the guard stomped forward and forced the man to move, the moment was over in seconds. But for the tourist who tried to block the guard's march, those few seconds felt like an eternity. His laughter faded instantly. His confident smirk disappeared. What remained was a look of stunned embarrassment, a realization that he had miscalculated badly. The crowd around him reacted with a mix of gasps and nervous chuckles. Some applauded the guard's swift action, while others shook their heads at the tourist's behavior. For the people who witnessed it live, the incident became one of those only in London stories they would tell for years. Of course, in today's world, no public moment truly stays private. Dozens of tourists had their phones raised. The second the guard shouted and advanced, at least 5 different cameras captured the confrontation from multiple angles. Within hours, the clips began appearing on social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. One video gained hundreds of thousands of views overnight. By the end of the week, millions had seen the clip. The thumbnail alone, the guard mid-step, face unshaken, rifle gleaming under the London sky, and the tourist backing away in shock, practically invited clicks. And then came the debate. As with most viral moments, the internet divided into camps. On one side, people praised the guard. That tourist got what he deserved. Ed, you don't mess with tradition. Respect to the guard. A discipline like that is unmatched. These men aren't statues, they're soldiers. Act like it. On the other side, some viewers felt sympathy for the tourist. Maybe he didn't know the rules. Couldn't the guard have been more patient? It's scary how quickly they snap into aggression. It's just a tourist having fun. No need to overreact. The discussion spread far beyond the UK. In the United States, news outlets picked up the story, running headlines like, "Royal Guard stops tourist in his tracks. Was it too harsh?" In Asia, clips circulated with subtitles and commentary, with many viewers expressing admiration for the guard's composure. Amid the noise, one message rose above the rest: the importance of respecting cultural and historical spaces. Buckingham Palace isn't a theme park. The guards aren't hired actors for entertainment. They are military personnel protecting one of the most important symbols of Britain. For many viewers who had only seen the guards as tourist attractions, the clip served as an eye-opener. Suddenly, people were Googling, "Are the Royal Guard's guns real?" and "What happens if you touch a guard?" The viral video transformed curiosity into awareness. This wasn't the first time a clip like this had exploded online, and it certainly won't be the last. The internet is full of similar encounters. Guards shouting at tourists who cross barriers, guards marching straight through oblivious crowds, even guards pushing aside people who step directly into their path. Each time the same cycle plays out. Shock at the sudden reaction, curiosity about the rules, debate over whether the guard was too strict. And each time, the conclusion is the same. The guards are not to be underestimated. Their composure may seem unbreakable, but their authority is absolute. Interestingly, while this incident highlighted the guards' discipline, it also sparked conversations about the rare moments when guards do break protocol in small, human ways. Clips of guards smiling at children, nodding at respectful tourists, or quietly helping someone who stumbled near them often resurface after such controversies. These contrasts remind the public that behind the stoic facade is a real person, but one bound by duty above all. In the end, the drunk tourist who thought he could block a march learned his lesson instantly, and the world watched him pay the price for underestimating centuries of tradition. The moment had passed. The guard continued his march, unshaken, unfaltering, as though nothing had happened. The crowd slowly dispersed, but the echoes of the encounter lingered. For the tourist, it was a moment of humiliation. For the guard, it was just another day of duty, but for the millions who watched the clip online, it became a powerful reminder of what happens when discipline meets disrespect. At first glance, Buckingham Palace may feel like just another landmark in a busy city, a place for photographs, souvenirs, and sightseeing. But the reality runs much deeper. Those guards in red tunics and towering bearskin hats aren't there for decoration. They are elite soldiers entrusted with the security of one of the world's most iconic monarchies. Their silence, their stillness, their refusal to break composure isn't weakness. It's strength. It's centuries of tradition distilled into a single posture. The tourist who tried to block their path forgot that simple truth. He saw a photo opportunity, maybe even a chance to get a laugh out of the crowd. Instead, he got a reminder that history doesn't bend for amusement. The guard's authority is not theatrical, it is absolute. This viral moment sparked a question that's as old as tourism itself. Where is the line between curiosity and disrespect? It's natural to be fascinated by the sight of a perfectly still soldier in the heart of London. But fascination can never come at the cost of respect. The guard has a job to do, one that demands discipline under pressure. Tourists may only see them for a few minutes, but the guards live their duty every single day. What seems like a bit of harmless fun, a wave, a joke, a step into their path, is actually a direct interference with their role. And as this incident proved, the response will always be swift and unflinching. For over 350 years, the royal guards have stood watch over the crown. Their uniforms, their discipline, and their presence represent not just military strength, but national identity. They are symbols of continuity in a world of constant change. Every stomp of a boot, every synchronized step, every glare forward is a reminder that some traditions will never be broken. It's easy to laugh at a tourist being put in his place, but it's far more meaningful to reflect on why the tradition exists in the first place, to protect, to honor, and to preserve a legacy that millions around the globe admire. Perhaps that's why clips like this resonate far beyond the gates of Buckingham Palace. Whether you live in London, New York, Tokyo, or Sydney, the sight of unshakable discipline in the face of provocation commands respect. It makes people pause and think about their own traditions, their own symbols of pride, and how easily they can be taken for granted. And maybe, deep down, it stirs a reminder in all of us. Respect isn't outdated. Discipline isn't old-fashioned. In a world where everything seems casual, moments like this prove that some lines are not mean. T to be crossed. So the next time you find yourself standing in front of Buckingham Palace, camera in hand, remember this story. Remember the tourist who thought he could test the guard and paid the price. And remember the lesson that went viral across the world. The guards are not performers. They are protectors. Respect them, admire them, but never challenge their duty. And if you enjoyed this story, if it made you pause, think, or even smile at the balance between tradition and modern curiosity, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next incredible moment we uncover. Finally, let me know in the comments, what would you have done if you saw this moment in person? Would you have pulled out your phone, stepped in to warn the tourist, or simply stood in awe of the guard's discipline? Because at the end of the day, the Royal Guard didn't just teach one tourist a lesson. He reminded the whole world that some traditions deserve nothing but respect.